Welcome to the Hardwood Hustle. Sam and I here, and we've been having a really good conversation off camera. We've been talking a lot about this lately as things are about to shift here. The season's coming to an end. You're getting around to where, what do we do next? How do we get better for the next year? Most coaches are either, disappointed or came up a little bit short or frustrated that the plan didn't go as well, and you don't want to repeat that next year. You want to get better. You want to improve. We talk about this all the time, that when you're coaching a team, it might not be always about how many wins, is it 20, is it 15, is it 10? The goal is really just helping your team to not underachieve. You want to achieve what they're capable of achieving or more than what they're capable of achieving. That means you've tapped out their potential and their talent. And there's a big piece to that. You and I talk about this all the time, is developing players, because not everybody gets to just go sign players with NIL money or go sign players, out of whatever your AAU team, just pick the best people around. Or if you're a high school coach, just get all these move-ins. That doesn't happen. That happens to the 1%. And Sam, you and I have lived in that world where, look, I've got a nice job, great place, but we're in the middle of nowhere. We don't have the same resources everybody else has. Like, we're not just picking and choosing the best of the best. We have to have a plan. And our plan has always been around player development. And I've watched your teams and over time in AAU. I go out and watch a lot of AAU games, and everybody's just kind of playing. They're just kind of hooping. And then there's certain teams, and it's like 1 out of 100 that shock me. Like, wow, this team is different. And that's your team. When I watch you guys play, it's like they are equipped differently. What's going on in the development of these players? And I'm not just saying that because Sam's a good friend. Like, go watch one of his AAU teams, and especially if he's coaching it, and they're going to do something different. I mean, they're going to look different. And you've experienced that. I know off camera we've talked about how many coaches have come up to you over time and say, man, what you're doing is different. There's something going on. And that is what the separator is. And it started this conversation because it's about to be track season for us. And many of you know, in our PGC coaching business, we run these tracks, and they're like master classes that go over a period of time where we're deep diving a particular topic. And the first one we created, which we're super passionate about, is it comes out here soon. And we're talking about that track, and is there anything we need to do to improve it? Is there anything we need to do to make it better? And we really just love the content of it because we're talking about what most people aren't talking about in player development. And I want to dive deep into that. I want to give you 4 different tips. Now, there's 49 different things going on in this track where we're talking about player development. So obviously we can't talk about it all, but we did want to give the listeners something specific that they could use right away. Sam, before we get there, I just want to get your thoughts on player development. Like, why is it a separator, and why is it so important?
Well, I love this topic, TJ. As you know, I mean, this is kind of the world I've lived in for, I would say even going back to as a player. For me, started as a freshman in high school, and I realized the value of individual player development. It can change the trajectory of a player for their career, for their season. It can change the team's trajectory. And when you look at, I think your question was, why does it matter? Well, when I study all of the great programs at every level. I'm talking NBA, whether it's Popovich and the Spurs with the daily vitamins, or our good friend Sefu Bernard, who's player development in the WNBA. Look at Villanova men, UConn women, high school coaches. My high school coach, won 9 state championships and recently retired in the state of Georgia. And so when I look at all the great programs across all levels, a common denominator is they develop players, and they do it in season, out of season, all year round. And so that, from a competitive winning standpoint, TJ, that's why it matters. Now, last thing I'll say and turn it back to you is, when I look at now, I have a better framework that you and I and Mono and a couple others, we spent, several months working on this, that, if they're watching online, this player development blueprint that we have, and we broke it up into 5 components, which is skills, reads, habits, physical, and mental. And so how I think about it now is through those 5 lenses. And am I improving when I'm coaching players? Am I helping them improve their skills, their decision making, their habits? Are they getting stronger, quicker, faster? Are they getting more confident? Are they developing more mental toughness, more composure? I'll stop there.
Yeah. Yeah, Sam, I think there's three different types of coaches. All right. And this is just kind of a broad statement, but there's those that can win with talent, and they get a lot of talent and they can win some games with talent. And I think that's one thing. And then I think there's the middle of the road coach, that kind of dabbles in everything. They try and do good offense, try and do good defense, try and develop players. They dabble in everything, and it may be good enough some years, maybe not good enough some years. And then I just think there's those coaches that make lemonade. They can take just about anything and find a way to level it up. And I think there's a couple of different separators in there. So one, can you build a culture that gives you the chance to make lemonade, right? I think that's the leadership part of it. Can you lead well and develop leaders? That helps you to make lemonade, right? I think it's really, really important. And then the third one is the one we're going to talk about. And we have tracks that we built out on leadership, on culture, just on about every topic you can think of that would improve a coach. How do you really dive deep into that? Not just catch a YouTube video or catch a tweet or whatever. Oh yeah, that's a good idea. Like, how do you actually improve your craft? Like, that's what we're about, is how do you actually dive deep and improve your craft? And it's probably not for everybody, because not every coach is willing to invest and becoming the best they can possibly be. That's hard work. It's like anything else. You want to be great in business, you want to be great as a teacher, you got to invest and you got to really go after honing your craft. So when we talk about, the leadership track or the culture track, being able to, then the one we're going to talk about today and give these tips on making lemonade is you got to be great at developing players, because there's going to be one certainty every single year, is that you wish you had better players. We all do. we all do. And there's those types of coaches, two types of coaches here, those that complain about it and those that actually get it done and they actually make better players. Then finally, one last divide that I'm going to give you. There's those that are doing what everybody's doing and getting the results everybody's getting. And there's those player development coaches that separate themselves, and there's certain things they understand and they know. And Sam, before we give them those 4 tips, you and I have lived in this space forever, and there are so many player development coaches out there, so many coaches. And to be honest with you, we've been around some great ones, but it's like a 9-to-1 ratio. You know what I mean? Like, somebody's going to go in there, put them through dribbling, put them through shooting, whatever. And there's a ton of those coaches out there. And then every once in a while, you come across a player development coach that's different, that's special, that really impacts players. You come across these coaches that really makes a difference in these players' performance and their ability. And that is, at the end of the day, what you have to do, because, again, only the 1% get to go get the most talented. So if you're going to find a way to stop complaining about your players, then the answer lies in actually just improving and making them better, working with what you got and tapping out their potential. Any thoughts before we dive into those 4 tips, Sam?
I think this fits. I think, TJ, a lot of times coaches fall into the wrong mindset. And here's 2 phrases I hear: we are who we are. I'll hear a coach say that. Or it is what it is. And I would actually say, yeah, you are who you are until you're not. And it is what it is until it isn't. Meaning, like, you're in, what is it? I mean, you're what, got about 5 to 10 games left in your season. I would argue you're going into practices right now. Your team has an identity and they have a certain style of play, and y'all have kind of settled into some rotations. All that's true. So you are who you are in some regard. But I would argue you probably go into practice today and this week thinking we can get better. Hey, we can get better at our rotations out of the trap in the post. Hey, we could get better at getting a couple more paint touches and make better passes out to kick out threes. Hey, we could execute our sideline out of bounds play a little bit better, maybe steal 2 more points a game. Is that fair to say? Like, you have that mindset as a coach. Well, I think more coaches need to have it. It's called a growth mindset. And so I would first start with coaches. Coaches listening to this. Do you believe that you can make your players better? Do you believe you can still make your teams better? I'm going in, I'm coaching, this winter at a middle school level where we're going into playoffs this week. We're only have a couple of practices. I can't wait to get to the practice floor today because I know we're going to get better at a couple of things. We're not going to have massive growth in 2 practices, but there's just a couple little things I think we can help our players with going into this postseason tournament. We're about to face a team for the 3rd time to go win a championship that I think we can improve, and it's going to help us do just that.
Yeah. And, these 4 things that we're going to dive into come really primarily from one of the weeks. So, week where we talk about the intangibles. And this is one of the most left out things of player development, but it is, in my opinion, one of the most important things. It'll actually greatly impact your practices. It will impact your games for sure, but your practices. And that's what we do more than anything. Your practices will be better if your player development does this. And we go through it and we asked ourselves this: what would a great player development coach do? What do they do? We study these people. I think we've done it. We've been around these people. Like, what do they actually do? And in those 4 weeks, and I'll just give you the overview. Obviously, we can't dive into all these 4 weeks, but the ability to win the season. So what does it look like long-term planning? And this is where a lot of people fail is, you can't improve a shot in 1 week. You have to have a long-term plan to be able to do that. You can't improve almost anything you do in basketball without a long-term plan. And a lot of players are getting passed on week by week, day by day. How can we just improve our skills today? But it doesn't happen like that. You have to have a long-term plan. So what goes into building long-term plans? How do you make sure you have really good long-term plans? That's what we talk about in week 1. And then we talk about what does an actual great workout look like? What are the components of the best workouts we've ever been a part of? We've seen NBA players trained. We've trained NBA players, college players. We're now currently training our own kids that are middle school and high school, coach college players at all levels. At all levels, what are the things that are happening at the best player development workouts? And then third is, what does the actual coach in the workout look like? How do they show up? What are they doing? What are they saying? That's what we talk about. And then the other one we're going to get to right now in the intangibles week is the thing that's often left out is I'm just checking in, checking out, getting this work done, getting my shots up, getting whatever. That's what everybody's doing. But the special ones are actually teaching the skills that are going to put all these things on steroids. So let's dive into those 4 things. All right. So Sam, the first one is this: communication. And every coach that I'm around, 90% of coaches, I wish my team talked more. I wish they communicated more. And what does communication do? Why is it important? Look, communication will save you buckets on the defensive end. Communication will help you be more efficient, effective offensively in their execution. Communication on the regular will build team chemistry because people are talking and communicating rather than just assuming. It eliminates mistakes. And honestly, it builds confidence when players learn how to use their voice. I mean, I could go on and on about all of the things communication wise. Now, we can't even dive all the way into this one because communication is not just what you say verbally. It's also your nonverbal, the body language of your players. I tell my players all the time, look like a champion, show up like a champion. And a lot of times players don't know what that looks like. What does your body language look like? What does it look like to run from one spot to the next? What does it look like to respond to your coach? And then all of a sudden we get into practice and this stuff isn't happening. It's because we're not holding it accountable every single day in our actual player development. And so here's my piece of advice, and I want to get your thoughts on this, is that there should be constant communication in your player development. Every time a coach gives a command, there should be a response, whether it's verbal, yes, sir, yes, ma'am, or whether it's a question or whether it's a eye contact and a head nod. Like there should be communication between coach and player. There should be communication between player and player. If they're going to build their culture and their leadership, they should be giving feedback or encouragement to their fellow teammates right there. They should be able to call out things that they're doing. So, and we do this and this is a great drill that coaches can still steal. We do our communication offense where we walk through our offense at 25%, but we communicate everything that we're doing. Setting a down screen, getting set, slipping out of the screen. They're communicating. The person coming off the screen. I'm coming shoulder to hip. I'm coming tight. I'm getting my feet around. I'm getting my shoulders square. Now they're talking through everything that they're doing. Now our player is actually moving with purpose. Now we go slow because it's really hard for a player to communicate all that at 100% speed. But eventually we want them to be able to communicate that at 100% speed. And I say this all the time. If a player can tell you what they're doing, they can do it more effectively because they actually know why they're doing what they're doing. So I'll stop there. I could go on about that, but communication being taught in your player development sounds really simple, but at 90% of player workouts I'm going to, there is no piece of communication being worked on. And the ones where communication is being worked on, those player development workouts look different.
Yeah. One side note on like player development, you're always training skill, physical, and mental, those three things, TJ. And I would argue the mental side of it is a thread that runs through everything with really good player development coaches or just basketball coaches. Now, I sent you, me and you were in a group chat with some of our coaching friends. Mostly of those are college coaches. And I sent y'all a video, I think it was last week, and Coach K's talking to Shane Battier. And Shane Battier, one of Coach K's greatest players and one of the best college players we've probably seen in the last, 30 years, you'd argue. And Shane Battier was saying the thing with you, Coach K, that you were always honest about was body language. And I would argue, TJ, like the body language of our players is really what? A reflection of what they're feeling, what they're thinking. So if a player is drooping their shoulders or putting their head down, they probably are just down on themselves. So my question to coaches listening and to you is what should body language precede the mental, or is the mental preceding the body language? That's kind of deep psychology there. But if you can't train, you can't get inside your players' minds always. But if you can train your players to have strong body language, maybe the strong body language will then precipitate or bring along the mindset. If we can train our players how to respond and not react, if we can train our players how to respond to a missed shot or a missed or a turnover, then they're probably going to mentally lock in quicker to the next play. And so I'm just building off what you said on communication and the nonverbal body language matters. What we say matters. What we do matters maybe more. Maybe they both matter equally. Maybe one matters more at times than the other.
There's two types of coaches in communication: those that complain about it and those that teach it. And you got to decide which one you're going to be. And you're going to be really happy and a lot more satisfied when you're teaching communication on the regular. It's going to improve your team and you're going to enjoy practice more. You're going to enjoy the growth of your team happening faster. So this is something that you want to make sure is being taught on a daily basis. It's going to improve your team communication and player development, especially like 1-on-1, 2-on-2, 3-on-3, 4-on-4 workouts, whatever it is. I think is a great time to teach communication because in the midst of practice and everything that's going on, you feel a certain sense of time crunch where we got to get this done. But when you're actually developing a player, it's a great time to slow down and talk about and teach this. And then it'll translate over into your practice. The second one I want to talk about, Sam, is confidence. Now, look, there is a lot of things we could talk about. All of these, just these 4 tips right here could be broken down into our topics alone. But confidence, and I want to talk about only one specific part of confidence in your workouts. Confidence comes from putting the work in. It's important. Confidence also comes from good self-talk, which you're trying to teach players, you're trying to help them through. But one way you can improve confidence is to show them that they're getting better. And so one of the things that we leave out a lot of player development. So I'll give you an example of a drill that we do called 7s or better. So, and this, you could change this according to your age and stage, but you're going to go to the 3-point line. There's 5 spots, the 2 corners, the 2 wings, and the top of the key. And you have to make 7 out of 10 to go on to the next spot. And if you get 7 out of 10, you can go. If you get, if you hit 6, you can stay. 5 or less, you got to go back. And so you got to work your way around. All right. Well, this number, this is, we do other things to chart and draft deeper, like in our
Sorry,
PGC.
how long do they have?
Well, I'll get to that one second.
Oh,
So you also um, we have this built out in our PGC coaching membership where we have the shooting ladder where we measure all of this stuff. Easy way for coaches to make sure players are improving when they're not there. But in this particular one, they actually start their phone and how long does it take you to complete it? And so they're timing themselves. And then the next time they're trying to beat that time. And they're, so you're constantly trying, well, all of the things that we have in the shooting ladder, they're trying to beat their previous time, their previous score, whatever it is, they're trying to show improvement. But that specific drill right there that we go through, it actually measures. And if there's players that have done this that can't get through it, right? Like it's, we put a time limit on like 20 minutes, you can't get done, you couldn't make it, right? And some players I've seen do it in, 4 minutes or whatever, and then some 20 minutes and they're still on spot one. And so that is a way. Now, now again, the psychology of coaching that you want to make sure younger ages, you give them a doable number, right? Maybe it's 4, maybe it's 5. I don't know what it is. But then as they go on, you up that number. So like when we start with freshmen, it might be like 5 is the number, and then midway through the year, we move it to 6. And then by the end of the freshman year, everybody's at 7. It's a really hard number to meet. But giving actual numbers to things and showing their improvement on any drills that you do is going to build confidence in them. So you can build confidence by talking to a player, helping with their mental self-talk, which is really important. And I think that should be happening in player development. But you can also build confidence by showing results. And I think that is something that we go in, we clock in, we have a 60-minute workout, we got our ball handling, we got our shooting in, we did all of the maintenance stuff. But a player has to know that they're getting better. And we dive into that in week 1 and week 2 on how to actually tangibly put that together. But that is one thing that will instantly make your player development and your players better is when they actually have real confidence coming into them because they see results.
yeah, I think that's good. I think that's a part of the conversation. So I'll build on it. Yeah, measured improvement. Where are you at? Where are you getting to? Where are you trying to go to? I think the other thing is like there's a reality in mental approach, which is most players, most people, gosh, myself, maybe you, like it's normal and human to struggle with doubt as a coach, as a player. And so teaching our players, hey, what do you do with that doubt? How do I turn doubt into confidence? How do I turn it into more self belief? And there's different ways you can do it. One thing I've always taught players that I find effective is to teach them how to focus on just losing themselves in competing, where you don't allow headspace for negative thoughts to enter or to live in your headspace. Meaning, if you're so focused at giving max effort on defense, if you're so focused on offense, just making the right decision and doing the right thing, you won't have time to doubt yourself. Or let me rephrase that. You have less time to doubt yourself. And so I think you do have to teach players how to mentally focus on the right things and take their attention away from the wrong things.
Yeah, and I think the confidence part, like if you go through that drill, I'm just giving one example of a drill, but like you go through that drill and you don't make it, it challenges your confidence. And to be honest with you, I think sometimes player development should challenge your confidence
Yeah.
because then if you overcome that, you have real confidence. And
Yes.
so there has to be failure and there has to be, hey, look, I couldn't do this or I couldn't do it in a certain amount of time. And then when you all of a sudden overcome that, you now have real confidence. And if you go out there and you shoot 500 threes, great, awesome. That's more work than 90% of people are putting in. That is really good. What you did is you worked on your form, you worked on repetition, muscle memory, all good stuff, right? But you didn't actually attack this too. And I think all player development should attack more than just reps.
And I think you're onto something too, which is important. So you have a player, TJ, that's a freshman for you, and they are struggling. So it took them 29 minutes to get through this drill, and it took your all conference. You got one of the best shooters in the country. Let's say it took him 5 minutes. Hey, the reality is that freshman may just not be there's a reason they're not confident because they're not good enough yet. And I
Yeah.
think what I hear from parents sometimes at youth levels and middle school or high school is they're like, Sam, Coach Sam, the coach just is taking all my son, my daughter has no confidence left. And they're blaming it on the coach. And the reality is, no, the coach didn't take the confidence. The reality is your son or daughter has hit a wall, and the wall is like they're going against better competition, they're going faster, and they're struggling. Welcome to life, welcome to competition. And now, what are you going to do about it? Are you going to go get in the gym and work on the things that you're struggling at? And so that's where to your point, maybe, is that's where the real confidence is born.
Yeah, and I think measuring and showing that, I think it's a real tangible way. Again, the shooting ladder is the way that we do it in our program. It's one of the best things I think we do is it builds confidence. It shows improvement. You work your way up the ladder. The third one right here, Sam, because we got to get to all four of these, mistake response. And this is something that is, obviously we can teach this in practice too when things don't go well. But I think player development work, whether it's, the beginning of practice, the end of practice, or just a separate session that you've got going on, because everybody has different time restraints. But when you're in the mode of player development, teaching mistake response, because it's a little bit more climatized where, it's not heat of the moment, but you're learning how to build a habit. If you've ever been to one of our PGC summer sessions, we do a whole video session on this. Like it's really an important and impactful opportunity to grow a player is how do we respond to these things that don't go well? Because basketball is a fluid, never stopping game. I say this all the time to my players, my college practices. This isn't football. We don't get 40 seconds between each play. As soon as you turn the ball over, you have about 1 second to change your mind and do the next thing. And it really is a game of mistakes. The less mistakes you make, the better chance you have of winning. And we all know that young people's minds, and not even young people, but of all age, it's very easy to let one mistake carry over to 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 plays. Mike Neighbors talked about it, with his players. I don't know if you want to share that story about how long it takes to bounce back.
Yeah, when he was at Washington with Kelsey Plum, number one pick, all time leading NCAA scorer before Caitlin Clark broke. She was highly competitive. She would get so upset. And he started in practice. He had one of those little stopwatches, and he would click it. And she saw him doing it, and she said, what are you doing? He said, I'm just timing to see how long it's going to take you to bounce back and get back. So that way I know during a game, I'll just sub you out. So I know that you need that amount of time. And that really ticked her off. And she, but the point was made is like, get over yourself.
Yeah.
Get on to the next play. We don't have time. You're our best player. We don't have time for you to live in your feelings.
Yeah, and that's mistake response. And so, one of the things we teach and it doesn't have to be this, but one of the things we teach our summer camps is make a mistake in 2 claps, just 2 quick claps. And it's really symbolic of just reminding yourself that's over. You're putting an end to that mistake. I got to move on to the next thing. It could be anything. I recommend every player has a mistake response. And I recommend in your player development, you teach a mistake response, even if you want to let them choose. When you make a mistake, I actually, before I even knew this, I did this as a player. My dad taught me this, but I had a rubber band on my wrist. And when something didn't go well, I would pop it real fast and remind myself to get back. And that was my mistake response. And you could have anything that you wanted in your mistake response to get yourself to be able to bounce back. But you can't just all of a sudden, and I see this happen all the time in practice. Something happens, a player gets down, happens in a game, player gets down or whatever. And we preach to them about how they need to stop thinking about the past, to stop going. But do they actually have a plan? Do they actually know how that's going to happen? No. And some players, and I'm guilty of this early in my career, I would have a player that had a poor mistake response, and we would have the mistake response conversation 40 times that season. The reality of it is we didn't have a plan for when things went wrong. And this has to go into your player development where you're going in and a little bit more of an air conditioned space and say, listen, shot didn't fall. You've missed 4 in a row. You missed 5 in a row. What are you going to do? You start to get frustrated, just a shooting drill, pop that wristband, 2 clap it, whatever it is that you want to do. I got to focus on the next shot. And that's the whole NBA, next best action response. And I think it's really important that you teach this to players because it's gonna save you points, it's gonna save you games, it's gonna save you possessions when you have a team that is capable. Now, this isn't part of it, but I just want to throw this in there. Do you as a coach have a mistake response? I wonder oftentimes whether we do, and I think it's important that we do to be able to teach that. Anything to add before we move on to the final one?
Most people react, few people respond. Average players react, great players respond. Reaction is impulsive. We just react. Somebody says something to us, we fly off the handle, we curse them back. Response is measured. Response is something you decide beforehand. How are you going to respond beforehand? Leaders do this in businesses, military leaders do this in warfare. You decide ahead of time how you're going to respond rather than just react. And I would say elite mindset is responders, average mindset are reactors.
Yeah. Last one, competitive mindset. I think every coach wishes they had more competitive players. I think every coach goes in and wishes that they competed harder, that everybody wanted it really bad. Same as I would say about the previous ones. Are you teaching this? And I think the best place to start teaching is in your player development, building individual competitive mindsets. Now, honestly, these first three lead to building the proper competitive mindset. Do players know how to communicate? Like, are they saying and doing the little things that are going to help their team win? Are they confident in their approach to things? Do they have, when things aren't going their way, do they have the tools in their tool bag to be able to respond properly? And then you get to this which builds up to this competitive mindset. And it's important to happen in your player development because then it becomes ingrained in everything that they do. Some players naturally get more competitive when you start playing 3-on-3, 4-on-4, 5-on-5, but really special players never turn off the compete button. And that's one of the things, like I talk about our shooting ladder. I love our shooting ladder because every time you go into the gym and our team and you're going to shoot, you are fighting for something. You are fighting to move up the ladder. You are fighting for your personal record. You are fighting for it every single time. And every shooting drill, whether it's a 1v1, a 2 versus 2, a team shooting drill, a score, a time, whatever it is that you're competing for, you have to develop this. And it starts with, and that's where I think when we walk into a lot of player development workouts, okay, we're going to shoot 100 threes. Okay, we're going to spend 10 minutes on ball handling. Okay, we're going to spend, everybody in America is doing that. You know what I mean? You're not getting any separation. Everybody in America is going in there and putting in some work. We have more skilled players than ever in the game of basketball. I say this, like, when I tell my players this all the time, like, guys, I would kill to have some of the talent that y'all have. Like, and I say there's more competitive players. I mean, more skilled players for us to choose from than ever. But the flip also might be true. There's less competitive players to choose from than ever. More skilled, but less competitive. And so coaches that may be old school or whatever, they're complaining about this. Well, they just don't know what it was like when Jordan was cutthroat. You know, they don't know what it was like when Bird and Magic went at each other. Look, and there's truth to it. Like when my kids watch The Last Dance and they watch Jordan getting mauled by the Pistons, they're like, people would be in jail for that today, right? Like there's definitely a shift in the game. But part of that shift we can have some ownership over, which is building more competitive players rather than talking about how they're not competitive. And you do that by building that into every one of your player development workouts.
Yeah, this is one I'm pretty passionate about, TJ. Everything you said, I agree with. How do you build more competitive players? Put them in environments where they get to compete. How do you build more leaders? Give players opportunities to lead. How do you get smarter basketball IQ players? Put them in decision making drills, not just uniform dribble to the cone, go between your legs, go to that cone behind your back. No, teach them how to read the defense. If you want better IQ, if you want more competitive players, put something on the line. Compete, get them to compete against themselves. Get them to compete against a partner. It could be as little as, and there's a lot of psychology, a lot of research behind this. and people argue about it, but I might have the blue team versus the red team. Losers do 5 push-ups. You don't have to run them for 3 miles if you lose, but just put more things on the line. Make it matter a little bit more. Put something on the line. I think that is a missing component in player development. I agree 100%. There are a lot of skilled players, but what if in their 1 hour workout with their trainer, instead of 1 hour straight of skills, they ingrained and incorporated competitive pieces to it all? And last thing I say on this is, does that mean that every moment of every practice has to be competitive? Probably not. You probably need just some skill building, volume shooting, where they're just focused on technique and they're not competing. There's a time for that. But if you want competitive teams, you better put them in competitive environments that matter.
Yeah. So listen, we gave you a little taste of the player development track. There's, again, the 4 weeks: win the season, win the workout, win the coaching, win the intangibles. How to be great at player development. Hardwood Hustle has been a blessing to you and I, Sam. Our opportunity to share with the basketball world and hopefully help coaches so that in turn they can help players and enjoy their career and be really good at what they do. PGC Coaching has been our ability to actually go deeper and disciple and actually change the way people coach. And we're passionate about that. We love that. And we want that. We want coaches to feel this. We want coaches to feel the feelings we feel of being able to be successful, to go win games, to go impact lives. And so we would love it if this interests you at all. Go to pgccoaching.com. Check out the track that we got coming up here. And we would love to have you be a part of it, any of our tracks, part of our PGC coaching community. And I know we're selling, but something that we're passionate about selling because we have hundreds of coaches that have been PGC certified, and they rave about what it's done for them and what it does for their career. And we would love to share that with other people. We'd love for you to be a part of our community. We share all that other stuff on Hardwood Hustle to be helpful, to be impactful, to be free for you. But if we want to go deeper, we've got to have another platform. That's what we use PGC Coaching for.
Yeah, and I would say too, TJ, like, first off, if you're listening to us and you made it through this whole podcast, thank you. We know you're listening to us when you work out or you're driving in the car. And TJ and I want to be more intentional in 2025 because we have a lot of listeners that reach out to us, message, email, and that don't even know about our PGC coaching membership. So we want to be more intentional about letting you know about it. And if it's for you, great. We'd love to have you. If it's not, and you just want to listen to the Hardwood Hustle podcast, keep on listening. But we do want to make you more aware of what we have going on behind the scenes and to help go deeper and better serve you as a coach and a leader, because we are passionate about it and we've seen it positively, influence others just as it has us.
Yeah. And most of all, we're thankful for what you do as coaches. And I know we mentioned this on a lot of episodes, but your impact is greater than the game. And we also appreciate, and if you're just listening to this, you care about your craft. And when you're in a leadership position and you're not investing in yourself, that's a problem. And so if you're listening, you're in a leadership position and you're investing in yourself, that is invaluable to you, but also the people that you're leading. So we appreciate that. Hey, if you got any thoughts, hit us up at Hardwood_Hustle. If you're interested in taking one of the tracks or going deeper, check us out, PGC Coaching, to become a part of the family. Hey, he is Sam. I am TJ. We are the Hardwood Hustle.
Thanks again for tuning into this episode of the Hardwood Hustle, where we believe in the value of a coach. Be sure to check us out on Twitter and Instagram at Hardwood_Hustle to stay up to date on the latest episodes and share your thoughts with our coaching community. From the Hardwood Hustle team, thanks again. We can't wait to be with you again next week.